Hello everyone and welcome to today's midweek reflection. Just to say that if your picture of Jesus is one of gentle Jesus, meek and mild, you may find today's reading rather unsettling, but hold tight and we'll see how we can deal with it in a moment or two. But first, we're going to hear Jesus speak from Luke chapter 11, verses 42 to 46. Woe to you, Pharisees, because you give God a tenth of your mint, rue and all other kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and the love of God. You should have practiced the latter without leaving the former undone. Woe to you, Pharisees, because you love the most important seats in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplaces. Woe to you, because you're like unmarked graves, which people walk over without knowing. One of the experts in the law answered him, Teacher, when you say these things, you insult us also. Jesus replied, And you lawyers, woe to you, because you load people down with burdens they can hardly carry, and you yourselves won't lift one finger to help them. If you did find Jesus' language hard to cope with, what about if I tell you that he's only there because a Pharisee asked him to eat with him? Some lawyers and some more Pharisees too, probably. I don't know about you, but my mum taught me to be polite, especially when I'm someone's guest. But the other diners get right under Jesus' skin, and etiquette and niceness and politeness go flying out the window, just like they did in an earlier meal in a Pharisee's house in chapter 7 of Luke's Gospel. To find out what prompted Jesus' anger, we have to go back to verses 37 and 38, when he arrives at the home. He senses his host's unease and astonishment when he sits down at the table and hasn't washed his hands. Washing your hands before eating was a sign of someone's holiness. But Jesus uses the moment to return to a continual conflict he has with Pharisees and lawyers and chief priests and all other leaders of the people. It's a conflict which is never resolved. The question for Jesus isn't whether our hands are washed, good though that obviously is, but whether our heart is. Is our heart focused on pleasing God or on ourselves or other people? When our heart is right with God, he'll purify it, and the good works that he calls us to do will follow. Part of the Pharisees' mission was to be a light, to help others find God by giving them an example. They show their devotion to God by obeying the law. They tithe, for instance. Quite right too, they should. And there's nothing wrong in tithing even herbs. But as they obsess with every detail of tithing, and all the law for that matter, they neglect what Jesus later calls its weightier matters, like justice and love of God in verse 42. They tithe herbs they grow in the garden, but forget tithing's purpose, to be compassionate to the poor, to ensure that they're fed. Their hard hearts have no grasp of Paul's later insight that God loves a cheerful giver. So far from being an example to people in their need of God, Jesus sees these Pharisees and lawyers as hindrances. They love being honoured and respected in the synagogues and the marketplaces. They load the people they should be nurturing and caring for with too many burdens, doing precious little to help. They inspire few, and rather than being lights of the world, as we are called to be, as well, never forget, Jesus sees them as more like places of darkness, graves, shamefully unmarked, so that anyone walking can unwittingly walk over them and then become unclean and corrupt. What a tirade from Jesus to those who are so concerned to do no wrong that they fail to live lives of positive action. They fail to do good and to serve the people over whom they have so much influence. And sitting right with them that day, face to face, is Jesus, their perfect example and light. But they're blind to who he is. They go to choose their way into the darkness, which will lead Jesus ultimately to the cross. There's so much in these few verses for me and all Christian people to ponder, I think. Will you join me in doing that? And for now, may you find the love and light of God in Jesus Christ, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, today and for the rest of this week. God bless you. Goodbye.